It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, you can see on my Sharp Interactive board, I have another new guest, folks. Very first time guest. His name is Jeff Ford. And Jeff Ford is the Vice President of Customer Experience for Impact Networking. I've highlighted Impact Networking quite a bit over these last few months. I'm really impressed with what those folks are doing. And in order to deliver remarkable services into the marketplace, it definitely takes a team. It takes leadership that understands that you have to cultivate this experience. You have to maintain the customer experience. And it's not something that's taken lightly or easy at Impact. Jeff Ford, how are you doing, man? It's fantastic to have you on the end of the day with Ray.
Hey, we're doing great, Ray. Appreciate being here.
Well, Jeff, here's the reality. I've talked about this a little bit around Impact, but the investments that Impact makes, not only with their internal customers, but their external customers, is some pretty substantial investments. And part of those investments are to make sure that those end users are well taken care of, well supported, and that there's somebody that actually has a 100% job focus doing that. And I don't know if a lot of our dealer friends quite understand the importance of that, let alone would they make the investment in that. So why don't you, just if I was a dealer owner, and let's just say that I wanted to get some advice from you, Jeff, on why this job's important. Tell me what your whole goal is over there at Impact and why it's important for a dealer to seriously consider having someone lead their customer experience.
Well, and I tell you what, something I really appreciate about Impact is that they're focused on the customer and retaining the customer. So with each deal, our expectation, our focus throughout that journey of that client contract, no matter what service it is, our focus is to make sure they choose Impact the next time. So we're making sure that we're putting in the right processes, providing the right services, and getting the right feedback from our clients to ensure we're providing those great services to our client.
Do you believe that, so at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff you said, a lot of people would say, well, hell, that's just permission to show up today. You got to have, you got to be doing things kind of right. But where does the balance come in where you have to really, what do you find the hardest thing to manage to achieve that? Let's put it that way. Because all organizations want to do all of these things, but where do they fall apart, and why does it take someone like you to help put those pieces back together?
Well, both sides have to understand what's expected and what's going to be delivered. So a lot of times it'll fall apart because there's a different expectation on the client side versus what we're feeling like we're providing for that service. So the scope of work and making sure we're doing the right discovery and getting the sign off as we go into that, but then also evaluating or surveying the client as we go throughout implementation, and then as we enter into providing those services, that we're getting the right feedback and we're making adjustments where we need to.
You said something that's so interesting, and I learned this when I spent some time with Milton Barley at ImageQuest in Nashville. And what you said was you have to have expectations aligned. And I believe 100% that is where the failure is in great customer relations. Because what happens is the provider, they might presume that they're the greatest company in the world. They're doing all these things, which again are just permissions to show up. But what they've neglected to do was truly align that customer's expectations with theirs and really understand what those customers' expectations were. And the only way that works, especially when you get into managed IT services, is you have to have the right customer already defined. And so, you can't be selling everybody and their brother. You can't go out and be the bragger that you're going to sell the way the customer wants to buy and all this crazy horseshit, because if you try to do that, you're never going to be able to deliver an exceptional experience. That's amazing. How much pushback do you get from the team? Because you're saying, hey, wait a second, if you do this, our customers are going to experience this based on our data or based on our experience.
Well, so if you mean, it's for us to win this deal, we're going to have to provide this service. And yet that's not something that consistently, can be provided in that environment or with that service. So it's so important to make sure that we get that alignment and come back to it with, what we're able to do and how that's going to benefit the client.
So basically, in order to deliver exceptional services, and this will sound so bizarre to some of our friends, you have to be able to say no.
Yes.
And a lot of
no.
what I always tell,
no. Yes.
I used to tell my buddy Milton, we were out there selling and talking to customers around IT services, that the benefit to us is that we do say no to the wrong people because we don't want to put the wrong customer on a platform that will take away with a lot of noise, aggravation, or unrealistic expectations what everybody else has been paying for. So that's interesting.
It exhausts a lot of your resources to be able to do the job that you're capable of doing and that you can deliver on. So, the other thing is you have to build processes that are going to allow your people to be successful. So when it all comes down to it, Ray, I really feel that, our people are the one that actually deliver on that customer expectation, what we say we're going to do. They're out there delivering on it every day. So you have to establish the processes that's going to allow them to be successful in that environment. And then, you have to recognize, you have to appreciate, and you have to provide opportunities for your people. So,
well, how do you, what's the managing criteria? So we know we want to find the right customer. We know we want to align expectations. We're in this engagement, if you will, or this customer. We're in an experience with our customer. How are you measuring whether that's fallen apart or not?
Well, there are obviously stages of every journey, right? And the first one is implementation or integration. Once you have a signed order and you've done everything you need to do to make sure we can provide that service. So then you're evaluating yourself a lot, Ray, along the way. In other words, you're saying, are we where we said we needed to be at this time? Is everything aligning with what we said we would deliver? And then getting that feedback from the client in a survey or in a QBR or what have you. So a lot of these times, these services, managed services agreements, take multiple engagements for an implementation, just because they take a while to integrate. But you need to make sure you're continually aligning with your client, and then to go back to it, just to win the deal, you have to be great, right? Great is where you want to set the stage at. Well, we always set that target a little further and make it world class, so that we're going to be able to provide a consistent service to our clients, whether it's managed IT, business applications, marketing, any of the services that we provide. So,
well, so you're on the team, you're leading this customer experience journey for the company and the customer at the end of the day. Do you wait till there's an issue, or does you and your team kind of go into the date and say, hey, wait a second, guys and gals, this project, we made these mistakes. The customer might not have noticed that, but I noticed it. I mean, is that how you have to do this?
Right, and that's what I kind of said back to the measuring ourselves, and whether it be the SLAs and what our expected, resolution time, or on an implementation, are we meeting the project timelines that we need to be at so that we can get this implemented. But we're measuring ourselves more than the client is. And then, to be able to come out with that and be honest with the client and say, here's where we're at, or here's where we're not at. This is what we need to do to work to get back on track with this implementation. And we do so. If you don't, they know it. They're going to know it. They're going to see it when we don't meet the timeline. So it's best to be open and keep that open dialogue throughout an implementation, throughout the journey with the client. Because again, we want to add in additional services down the road with that client. So that's why it's so important to us to make sure that we're providing that client experience, that account experience. So, even more than that, you're looking at a lot of different areas that and services that you're providing an account. Those are touch points. Every one of those touch points are an opportunity to wow that client or to satisfy that client, right? And so, no one's 100% perfect. But if we know we're wrong and we, can say, this is what we're going to do to rectify that, then we do. I'll say this, we're pretty good at it. We do a great job of inspecting what we expect and managing ourselves to make sure that we're delivering on that. Again, we don't want to waste resources, exhaust resources where we don't need to. So we're continuing to define, our processes and what we need to do to make sure that we're able to deliver on that.
Well, a lot of times if you do it on the other way, a lot of people are just reactive. they think everything's going good because they sent out the 3 smiley face survey and the customers didn't complain, but they're not really managing the back end of it. And maybe the customer or whoever filled out that survey in the account, they might be okay, but there's other people in the account that aren't. And if you're proactive with this and you're managing your own people and your own expectations, that's pretty important. And I think that's probably where they drop the ball. That's where people don't want to make that investment. Because, if you're going to run a reactive customer service experience team, that's probably pretty simple. You just lose customers. The ones that complain go away. You end up trying to solve some problems by going in there and giving out huge discounts. So kudos to what you're doing, Jeff. I think it's exciting stuff. I love, learning more about impact as time goes on. And is there anything you want to add before we end this?
Well, I just would say that, customer loyalty is still alive if you earn it. And it takes a great team and a lot of effort to make sure that you can maintain that customer and add in additional services throughout the way. So,
well, the bottom line is people will pay for remarkability. People will support remarkability. People will get more remarkability along the way. You just got to keep them remarkable. And Jeff, everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo. We'll see y'all tomorrow.